G'day, AJMahari here, and in this video I want to talk about 9 tips to help stop rumination. Rumination is a hugely experienced, very painful, difficult, frustrating, and more, I'm sure adjectives could be applied, but side effect, one could say, major effect, BPD relationship breakups. And so being still in the trauma bond, suffering cognitive dissonance, can't stop ruminating about that, maybe just recently BPDX, or you've been ghosted and you're not sure if you've been discarded, and you just can't stop ruminating about them. And the more you ruminate about them, the more you really suffer, and it's not helping you because it's obfuscating you focusing and learning more how to focus on yourself in working with somebody, and I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you. The first thing about rumination to know, ruminating over the past, the present, and or the future, because often it's everything for people at a given time after BPD relationship breakup, or ghosting or discard, or on-off, limbo place, etc. And it's really challenging. And there are strategies to manage rumination. So a few tips that could help people with rumination if you really try to get into action with these tips. And one is immersing yourself in deep thought, like purposeful thought, not where the rumination wants you to go, in loops and circles in your mind. Pondering over the past, present, or future situations can be a healthy way to sort through problems. So this won't be the script of the rumination in and of itself. But when thoughts of the past, the present, the future, the relationship, I gotta get him or her back, I can't be without them, what do I do now, my life is ruined, I don't know who I am anymore, all these horrible thoughts that are true for people at what you're going through. But when these thoughts become repetitive or only focused on the negative aspects, it likely means that you are experiencing rumination. And experts don't consider rumination a mental health disorder or condition, but it can accompany conditions like anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and depression. And a lot of people, upon a BPD relationship breakup, or splitted evaluation and discard, or big ghosting, like these awful experiences that are very shocking and leave you confused and lost because you've lost yourself, it's extremely painful, and people can definitely be experiencing a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression. And for some people, they may have pure O, that's pure OCD, meaning you might not have a lot of rituals that you do, but you might be thinking in ways where obsessive and intrusive thoughts, something that you can experience all too easy and too often, unfortunately. And people can find themselves stuck in rumination from time to time in different situations. But the key thing here is it's most people who have a breakup with a partner or girlfriend or boyfriend with borderline personality disorder. So the first thing that you don't have to work too hard to do is identify. The first tip is identify the source of your rumination. And probably most of you know that's the ex, right? Or the on-off person with BPD. And even though that actual breakup or the event, the relationship, all the struggles and the stresses and losing yourself you've gone through in that relationship might seem like that's the whole event, that's the whole reason that you're ruminating on that person, it's not necessarily the root cause of your rumination, even if they seem to always be the subject of your rumination. There can be other underlying reasons for why you're ruminating about that BPDX or on-off, or you're in the limbo place. Other reasons for rumination could include that you might have an undiagnosed anxiety disorder, and it might be really worse right now, especially. You may be suffering depression. You might be feeling or experiencing a lot of perfectionism. You may have some other mental health condition happening for you right now, maybe something that's been going on, maybe something that's new. And of course, don't forget codependency and the formidable mental health challenge that it really is. Identifying these conditions or characteristics can help you understand your rumination better. Discovering underlying causes of your rumination may also help to determine if talking with a mental health professional would help you. And if you're watching this video because you watch videos of mine because you know you're with somebody with BPD, or it's on off, or you don't know if it's a final discard or a ghosting, then I think you can be pretty sure of why you are experiencing the rumination. It's still an intact trauma bond, no matter where the relationship stands, no matter how much pain and suffering you're actually going through, because whether it's over or it's not over, and all that's happened to you in this relationship and how you've lost yourself. And it also depletes your resources, your energy, and your coping mechanisms. The second tip is really just allow yourself to feel your emotions, because this is something that doesn't happen for a lot of people after these relationship breakups. Some people may really grieve. Some people may really have a lot of anxiety. But a lot of people with codependency are going to try harder to focus on that person with BPD, ruminate about them at your own expense, increasing your own suffering, because you're not focusing on yourself at all. And it becomes really almost impossible for people to do that at times. And I know I get a lot of clients who come to work with me in that stage, for sure, of rumination, and how to start bringing that under some control so that it's not just causing you more and more suffering every day, and you can't stop thinking about this person, which happens to most people after a BPD relationship breakup, discard, ghosting, however it ends, or if it's on and off again. So when you're ruminating about the past or the recent past with somebody with BPD relationship, it might be family, you might have children involved, there's a lot going on for different people. And the thing is that rumination is often occurring because of unaddressed emotions, unfelt emotions. You just keep thinking the same thoughts about what happened or what you want to be different, and you don't even come up for air. That just, for some people, that just goes on for 24 hours a day for quite a while. So it's important to try to journal about your emotions, start to try to figure out what you're actually feeling. Can be really hard because a lot of people by this point have really lost themselves to the borderline, to the relationship, to the stress, to just how harmful these relationships really are. So often rumination is a defense mechanism almost, in the sense that it's taking up space in your head, in your mind. It's preventing negative or uncomfortable emotions from entering into your awareness, from being felt, from being dealt with and coped with. And this is why rumination is often looked at least I look at it in part, as how people are protecting themselves from the pain that they don't know how to cope with after these breakups. So you want to lessen the frequency and intensity of the rumination, which really will come about if you are able to do some focusing on yourself and understanding what you're feeling. And that's why I recommend people get, if I resonate with you, I'm out here to work with you. Get working with me right away if you're in this place right now. Because whether you're going to go back, whether it's not going to happen, whether you don't know, you need help right now. Because this is a real key part of suffering. But the other thing is, don't think you just need help with that, because when that starts to feel a bit better, there's still a long way to go. So I have some people that come and think that, oh, well, I'm not feeling the rumination, I'm not thinking that anymore, so I'm fine. No, you're really not fine, but it is a big relief when the rumination starts to come down or be less frequent and less intense. And a third tip to deal with rumination, you need to really determine what you can control and what you can't control. which might be something else that right now you just don't really want to deal with. But if you don't deal with it, it can increase the frequency and intensity of that rumination. So you might be ruminating, focusing, thinking about the borderline because you're trying to control where your mind is putting focus, where your mind's putting attention, so that you can protect yourself. But you really need to take a step forward with that, because you really do need to know what you're thinking, you do need to know what you're feeling, and you do need to start feeling that and working with someone to process that, because that really helps to, again, take a lot of the sting and intensity out of rumination. So when you're ruminating about the BPDX, or on again, off again, what you're doing is you're controlling what your mind's focused on, which usually keeps people out of their emotions, which intensifies and worsens the rumination. So you see what's happening there in this sort of looping, cycling way? If you don't try to do some other things for yourself, like figuring out how you do feel, what you are thinking about, maybe what you are trying to control, you need to reach out, like journal, reach out for sessions to talk about what you're actually going through and how you need to be able to get in touch with your emotions, but you might be blocking your opportunity to get in touch with your emotions, obfuscating that, and you're increasing your suffering and you're making the rumination worse. This happens for so many people. So you need to think about some things that you're feeling out of control with to be able to start to focus on what can you control in maybe a different way, as opposed to just obfuscating with ruminating and focusing on the BPDX, because you're trying to control all your feelings and not feel anything and just think about them and maybe hope that you're going to get them back and things like that, which just makes the rumination much worse. And a fourth tip is ground yourself to the present. Have you tried that? What would that look like? Negative thoughts can help to even rewrite history bigger than it was, and I'm sure it was big enough, injurious enough, traumatic enough. So if you find yourself in a cycle of self-doubt, guilt, and rumination over a past situation, or an on-off, maybe somewhat fluid but not really fluid situation, it might be helpful to determine if your perspective actually aligns with reality. And that can be challenging too, because you're trying to protect. Often people are trying to control their emotions and not feel them, and focus on the borderline exclusively in the rumination and the intensity and the thinking and these cycles just like constantly. And so what's happening in your reality right now might be another question you could ask yourself and do some journaling to. Even though it might feel impossible to focus on it, it's important to give it a try. It's important to consider grounding practices. Grounding yourself, it's really important to probably put both your feet on the floor, maybe look out at nature, or if you have a backyard, or if you had a park, if you can be outside, watching what's going on around you, taking in some nature, some sun. It's important to keep your feet on the floor, to take in slow, deep breaths to the count of about 8 through your nose, blow them out through your mouth, and really find something to focus on. A tree, or if you're in your living room, a chair, a table, a lamp, and use mindfulness to describe. Really describe a tree, a car, a street, whatever you can see. And when you're doing that, believe it or not, your brain can't keep focusing on all of the rumination and the describing of what you're actually describing by looking at it, observing it, and just literally out loud if you're alone, or in your own mind, just everything about that car you're looking at, everything about that tree, everything about that lamp, everything about that grass. What color is it? What's the texture like? How far does it go? How far can you see it? And practice the deep breathing and ground yourself in the here and now. And when people start this, it sometimes lasts for 2-3 minutes at the most, maybe seconds, and then you come back to the rumination and you have to start over. And you have to do it purposefully. It's a practice. So grounding and then mindfully describing something in your environment. So a fifth tip is name your rumination. Giving your ruminating thoughts identities can help you have power, some control over them. Consider the following prompts if this thought comes. I see you. Name the thought, but I'm not engaging with you right now. Then maybe 8 deep breaths slowly, into the count of 8 through your nose, blow out through your mouth, keeping your feet on the ground or on the floor, whatever environment you might be in. You can utilize this technique. It adopts wherever you go, your mind will follow, which will help you shift your thoughts in a more positive direction. And again, if even only for seconds or a minute or two to begin with, this is a practice to keep doing when the rumination starts. You need to do something to kind of counteract that. And tip 6 is get out of your mind and into your body. So short bursts of exercise are highly recommended to reduce rumination, and it can improve your mood in general. And exercise can also help you to, maybe if you're really anxious, it'll help you to expel some of that anxiety so you can be a bit calmer, taking away the intensity or maybe frequency at a time of your rumination. So you could also engage in activities like going for a brisk walk, getting involved in a hobby, cleaning and organizing your house or a part of it, if you have a lot to do, and maybe enjoying an activity in nature like gardening, for example. Tip number 7 is you can use positive affirmations. When stuck in a negative thought loop of rumination, verbalizing anything positive may seem very daunting. Still, practicing positive affirmations can counteract negativity, and maybe that will help you to reduce some of the time and or intensity that you spend ruminating at a given period in time. It can also help you manifest more positivity in your life, which is important, day to day, moment to moment, which may really help to alter your negative mindset associated with the rumination and the entire topic and the subject and the person. So the 8th tip is try to be actionable. Try to be in action. So if you're ruminating and you're inactive, inactivity leads to further rumination. To rectify this, consider counteracting negative thought loops by putting some of those thoughts into action. You could begin by making a list or an outline that lays out the problem, some journaling, while also brainstorming potential solutions other than anything having to do with the BPDX. You want some solutions as to what action can you take today in your life or in the next half hour or the next hour. No matter how hard it is to get into it, each time you do take some action, you're going to be relieving some of the intensity and the amount of rumination. Keep in mind you don't have to solve the problem that you've been ruminating about. You want to just get some movement happening, some action toward solving it. It's not that you have to solve it right now. And the 9th tip is bring in reinforcements. You don't have to go through it alone. Consider reaching out to a trusted friend or a family member for support. And the only problem with that, but try it, and you might need it for a while, is that people often don't understand what you're saying. They don't understand the trouble if the relationship's over. Many people might say back to you, well, move on, get over it, or, why are you still thinking about this person? That happens a lot because people who have never been with a person with borderline personality disorder, people who have never had a BPD relationship breakup, really don't understand what you're going through. But it can still be helpful because you might find 1 or 2 people at least who will be able to be supportive in spite of the repetition factor that you're trying to take action and sharing is going to cause. And they may not understand totally. but hopefully they'll listen. When rumination occurs frequently and intensely, it can really harm your mental health and well-being. And for people with codependency after BPD relationship breakup, a discard, ghosting, it can really leave you with more anxiety building and feeling more confused than ever, feeling more lost than ever. It's really painful and uncomfortable, and it can be scary too. So if you try these things and you still consider, you still have the same intensity and amount of time ruminating, you're not getting any relief yet, you're having difficulty overcoming repetitive and intrusive thoughts, then it's time to consider talking to someone like myself, if you resonate with me, an expert in this area, and get into the action step of really talking about this, working on strategy to actually manage it and help you to get some relief from it, so that we can get into the next step of the work, which is talking about how you feel. What are your emotions? What are your fears? What's going through your head? Really helps to talk about it. And when people are ruminating, they're not always only thinking about the past. That's there for sure. Could be yesterday, could be 6 months ago or longer, or something in between. But people ruminate about the past, they ruminate about the now, and they ruminate about the future. And often what's going into the future are a whole lot of sort of codependent fears and worries and negative core beliefs and thoughts about how nobody else is ever going to love you, and that was the person for you, and what are you going to do now? So you want to try not to go jumping into the future that way in ruminating with intrusive thoughts, because you'll probably be pretty focused on the borderline. And then the other thing is, people bring that right into the here and now. So you're dealing with the past almost exclusively, kind of overlapping the here and now, and then all this worry and all kinds of other things and intrusive thoughts about the future. Really important to be able to slow that down, separate those out, but it is very, very difficult. And I do work with a lot of clients initially because they can't stop ruminating, and we work on that, and then it's one step at a time, because most people find it's very helpful when they can bring that rumination down. And then when working some tips I gave you here, strategies and things I add in sessions with people, and suggestions I will give them along with the exercise one and other ones, people start to practice these things. People start to see benefits from that over time. And sometimes you really need support, and needs to be the beginning of a healing process to help you with that. But it doesn't necessarily just happen overnight, for sure. But if you're sitting there ruminating by yourself and you're watching this video, think about it, because the more you do that, the more entrenched that's going to become, the more you're going to increase your suffering. So you're taking yourself in the opposite direction from what you really need to take action on to be able to get in touch with your thoughts and your feelings. I mean, not the ruminating thoughts, but other thoughts and feelings that are behind all of the protection that you're actually controlling, maybe subconsciously, unconsciously, maybe consciously, but that you're controlling to keep yourself out of other feelings that you might not know how to cope with right now. And not, it might sound strange to say it this way, but when people have lost themselves to these relationships and these people with BPD, it gets even exponentially more difficult to cope with anything, let alone all that's coming at you right now. So I hope you found that helpful. Hope you might try a few of those tips. And in the meantime, out here to work with you. If I resonate with you and you really want to start to do the healing work, the discipline, routines that you can put in place to really help you start to bring the rumination time and intensity down, to free up other time. People need to concentrate on their jobs, obviously can't for some periods of time. And you also need to learn how to start thinking about you, and not only what you're ruminating, who and what and why. you're doing all the ruminating. So I hope that was helpful. Rumination is very challenging, but it is something that when I work with clients, people do over the course of the first few sessions start to get some relief from that because, well, I really try to encourage people to make sure they're doing some things like some of these tips and more that will help people to find relief from rumination.